All right, welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive.
Always ready to go deep.
Today, we're tackling a concept that's pretty much the key to, well, achieving anything you set your mind to.
Sounds intriguing.
Yeah.
I'm all ears.
We're talking faith, but, and this is a big but, not the kind you might hear about in a church or temple.
Okay, so we're not talking about religious faith.
No, we're going deep into the kind of faith Napoleon Hill wrote about, the force behind turning those big dreams into, well, reality.
The power of belief. Now we're talking.
Exactly. Ever wonder how some folks just seem to defy the odds, achieve the impossible?
You mean like how do they do that?
Yeah. That's the power of unshakable faith we're diving into today.
Love it. Where are we getting all this wisdom from?
We're taking most of our cues from a piece inspired by, Hill's teachings. It basically says, forget blind faith or just wishing for things to magically happen. This type of faith, it's active, it's a commitment, it's like acting as if your goal is already a done deal.
That's interesting. So it's not just about hoping, it's about believing it's already happened.
Right. Think of it like a mental muscle. The more you work it, the stronger it gets.
So the stronger your faith, the bigger your goals, the bigger your achievements.
You got it. I'll bring up some key points from, what we've been reading, and then you can help us break it all down. Figure out how to actually use this stuff.
Sounds like a plan. I'm ready when you are.
Perfect. Let's start with, definitions. What do we actually mean by unshakable faith?
Yeah, let's get specific.
Well, our source puts it pretty perfectly with this line. Faith is the force that transforms thought into reality, the unseen power that shapes, well, the course of history. Powerful, right?
Absolutely. It really captures the essence of faith as a driving force. But how do we separate this kind of faith from just wishful thinking?
Right. How is it different than crossing your fingers and hoping for the best?
That's where conviction comes in. It's about truly believing, like deep down, that your goal is already becoming reality. And that belief changes everything. It changes your actions, it changes your thoughts, even how your subconscious mind works. It's like setting yourself on a path, a trajectory towards what you want.
That's interesting. It's almost like embodying the reality you want even before it's actually, physically there.
Exactly.
Which actually leads us to the next big idea from our source, the mental blueprint.
A blueprint for success. I like it.
They're basically saying faith begins with a thought, a vision, a plan even. They use the Wright brothers as the perfect example.
Those guys were visionaries.
Right, imagine they envisioned flight, like actually flying before they even built a plane.
Wow. Talk about a strong mental blueprint.
That unwavering belief in their vision, well, it fueled every single thing they did.
And we see this in so many areas, don't we? Athletes use visualization to imagine themselves winning. Entrepreneurs plan out their whole business, like every detail, before they even start. Artists see their masterpiece before they even pick up a brush.
They're all tapping into the power of their subconscious, huh?
Exactly. And like our source explains, the subconscious, it doesn't really know the difference between, something you imagine vividly and actual reality. So when you constantly picture your goals, you're basically programming your mind for success.
That's incredible. But it can't just be about, daydreaming, right?
Definitely not. There has to be action too.
Our source makes that clear, for sure. Action is a huge part of this whole equation. And they tell this great story about Walt Disney. Can you believe someone actually told him he lacked creativity?
Wait, Walt Disney? No way. The man who basically built an empire on imagination.
I know. But his belief in himself, it was stronger than anyone's doubts. And it makes you wonder, what are you being told you can't do? What dream are you holding back on because of someone else's doubts?
It's a powerful question. We all have those voices in our heads sometimes, don't we? Telling us we're not good enough or our dreams are too big.
Absolutely. So how do we fight those voices and turn our faith into action?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting. It's not just about taking action, it's about taking consistent action. Action that lines up with what you believe. You have to act like your goal is already in motion, even if it seems crazy to other people. That's what real faith looks like.
Okay, so we're starting to see how this whole faith muscle works. We're visualizing, we're taking action, but let's face it, doubt creeps in for everyone, right? How do we deal with that?
Oh, doubt is a part of life. It's a universal human experience. And, our source actually acknowledges that. They even compare it to like a little monster that whispers lies, trying to chip away at our faith.
That's a great analogy.
They even have this line that really stood out to me. Doubt is the enemy of faith. It tries to tell us we're not good enough, our dreams are too big, success is for other people. But the good news is we don't have to let it win.
So, how do we fight back against this doubt monster? Does our source have any specific advice for us?
Absolutely. One of the first things they suggest is surrounding yourself with supportive people. People who believe in you and, what you're trying to achieve. Their positive energy can really help fight off those negative thoughts.
That makes sense. It's like building a positive support system, right?
All right. And they also talk about the power of affirmations.
Ah, yeah. I've heard of those.
By repeating positive statements that, line up with your goals, you can actually reprogram your thinking. It's like creating new paths in your brain that lead to success.
So it's about feeding your mind with positivity and, well, drowning out those negative voices.
Exactly. And, another tactic they suggest is focusing on what you can control. You can't control every single thing that happens, but you can control your actions, your words.
Right. Focus on what you can do, not what you can't.
And by choosing to act and speak in ways that support your faith, you basically starve that doubt monster and empower your belief to grow stronger.
Okay, I'm really starting to get this. We're choosing to focus on what we can control, surrounding ourselves with good vibes and taking action that matches our vision. It's almost like we're building a fortress of faith around our dreams.
I love that analogy. And the more we practice these principles, the stronger that fortress gets. Just like building any muscle, it takes effort, but the payoff is huge.
So far, we've been talking about how unshakable faith can, impact us personally. But our source takes it even further. They're saying this kind of faith, it can ripple outwards, even inspire other people, like even spark entire movements.
Yeah, they bring up those historical figures, the ones who really changed things. Leaders, inventors, people who really fought for something. They all seem to have had this unshakable belief in their vision, and that belief, well, it spread.
It's like their faith was contagious, huh?
Right. And what's really interesting is how faith can become like a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you truly believe in something, that passion, it shows, other people see that commitment, that rock-solid belief, and they start to think, hey, maybe this is possible after all. Like, would Martin Luther King Jr. have been able to lead the civil rights movement if he hadn't truly believed in, the dream of equality? Makes you think, right?
It really does. It's like their faith became the spark that ignited this whole movement. And it reminds me of those times I've been around someone who's just, super passionate about something. Their energy, it's just infectious. You can't help but get caught up in it. But let's be honest, there's this other big obstacle that often gets in the way of faith. And, well, it's fear. Our source digs into this, saying fear and faith, they can't really exist together. So how do we actually use faith to, overcome that fear? How do we turn that fear into fuel?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The source suggests that the most successful people, they don't actually try to avoid fear. They understand it for what it is, this illusion, a mental barrier that disappears when you just take action. Like, think about any major breakthrough in history. It probably came from someone who took action even though they were scared.
So it's not about being fearless. It's about having faith that's stronger than your fear. But how do you actually do that?
It's about taking that first step, even if it's a tiny one. That one action, it starts to chip away at the fear. You're basically proving to yourself that you're capable of moving forward, even when things feel uncomfortable. And as you keep taking action, your faith grows and the fear shrinks. It's like a seesaw, one goes up as the other goes down.
So it's not about waiting until you feel brave. It's about acting anyway and trusting that the courage will, catch up.
Right. The source emphasizes this point over and over. Faith isn't passive, it's active, it's dynamic. It's about, making your own opportunities instead of waiting for them. It's about creating things, not just hoping they'll happen.
It's like you're the architect of your own life, right?
Yeah.
You design it and then you go out and build it.
Exactly. And the source gives some really great examples to illustrate this. Like, think about Walt Disney again. He got rejected by tons of investors before he found someone who believed in his vision for Disneyland. What if he had given up after the first few rejections? Can you imagine?
We'd be living in a much less magical world, that's for sure. But it's not just about those huge, ambitious goals. This idea, it applies to anything we want in life. Starting a business, writing a book, even, just improving a relationship. It all starts with that belief, that unshakable faith.
And remember, our source puts it so well. Everything ever achieved was first imagined. Everything we take for granted now, someone thought it up. Someone believed in it. The difference between those who make their dreams happen and those who don't. Faith.
It's such a simple idea, but so powerful. It ties back to what we talked about earlier, the power of the subconscious mind. If you really believe something is possible, your subconscious will find ways to make it happen. It'll guide your actions, it'll attract opportunities, even connect you with the right people.
It's almost like setting an intention, and then the universe conspires to help you make it happen. But you have to really hold on to that intention with, unshakable faith.
You have to commit to that vision. But we've talked about doubt and fear as obstacles. What about, failure? That's something a lot of people get stuck on.
The Source actually addresses that in a really beautiful way. They remind us that faith is what helps us get back up after we fail. Every setback, every challenge, it's just a test of our belief. You know those motivational posters that say, fall 7 times, stand up 8. That's the idea.
It's about being resilient, about not letting those setbacks, define you. Our Source says it perfectly. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of the journey.
It's fascinating how we can, reframe failure. It can actually make us stronger, teach us valuable lessons. It can even prepare us for bigger achievements down the road. It's about shifting our perspective and seeing those setbacks as opportunities for growth.
I love that. Reframing failure, turning it into something that actually helps us grow. It's like taking away its power, And speaking of reframing, our Source has some really interesting insights on how we can actually use faith to transform fear. They say fear is probably the biggest thing holding most people back from success, but that faith and fear they can't really exist together. So how do we make that shift? How do we go from frozen by fear to taking action?
Yeah, it's about mastering fear, not avoiding it.
Yeah.
Recognizing that a lot of times it's really just an illusion, a mental block that disappears when you just, take that first step. The Source actually points out that most people who achieve big things, they weren't fearless. They were just able to act in spite of their fear.
So it's about taking action even when you're scared, trusting that the courage will come along for the ride.
Exactly. And the Source really drives this point home. Faith, it's not passive. It's about making things happen, not waiting for them to happen to you.
It's about taking control, right?
Yeah.
Not just letting life happen to you, but actually creating the life you want.
Right. And they have this great line. It says, time doesn't wait for those who hesitate. Like every minute you spend doubting yourself, that's a minute lost. The people who really make things happen, they take action before they feel ready. They trust that the path will, appear as they go along.
It's like a call to action, right? An invitation to just jump in head first and trust that your faith will lead the way.
And that's really what this whole deep dive has been about, helping you discover just how powerful faith can be in your life.
It's about understanding that you really can achieve anything you set your mind to, as long as you truly believe it's possible.
Belief is everything.
So as we wrap things up, we want to leave you with a question, something to think about. It comes straight from our source material. What's one goal or dream you've been putting off because of, doubt? What if you actually believed it was already happening? What's one thing you could do today to move towards it? We really encourage you to, sit with that question, really let it sink in, see what happens when you start to embrace the power of unshakable faith. And until next time, keep diving deep and keep believing.